trying to come over here.
Yeah.
She's.
Oh wow,
You know,
they're very friendly.
When you hear of mohair sweaters,
Uh-huh.
that's the fiber from the Angora goat.
Oh.
So we are raising Angora goats. Did you want to give them some treats? You can.
They're very personable. Like food. They are about to break their neck trying to get some food. Look at that. Look at this.
They eat all day. They eat all day.
Oh, they eat all day?
They do. Every tour they get, you know. Did you want some? Or?
Oh no, I'm probably filming.
Okay. Did you want some more?
He's like, more? Say more?
Yeah.
Did you say more?
There you go.
Oh, this must be the dominant one here.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I guess I don't get none. Like, oh well. They back off.
This is the leader here.
The pack leader. Like, if y'all don't get any stuff, I'm gonna get some stuff.
Just watch, look.
Do the best you can.
Watch this.
Yeah, see?
You know, very subtle. You know, very subtle. It's mine. Yeah. Don't forget. Don't.
Poor other goats. So they're like, you want some food too? Those other two back there are just kind of observing. That is just so funny.
Mm-hmm.
Aren't they something? The males and females all grow horns,
Oh, okay.
Okay.
and they start growing them a week after birth.
Okay.
And you can see the slide there.
Okay, what's the slide for?
Week after birth, they start getting on that slide, and they
Hey,
What they do?
they,
those eyes.
they teach
Look at this.
themselves that on each other how to walk and
Oh.
balance.
Okay.
They do, and jump and crawl under things.
Oh, okay.
One year we had to move the slide because
they have
one year
Rectangular
there was
pupils.
this. We noticed that there was this one goat that would get on it
Mm-hmm.
and would look down and fall,
Oh.
and then another goat came up to it right away and brushed against it, and showed it how to get up and jump. It showed it how to jump. It was really something. So they see. See, they're like, okay. All right.
They have rectangular pupils.
Yeah.
I have read that sheep have the same kind of pupils. They do that for predators. They have a wide
You're
field
right.
of,
Yeah.
of vision.
Yeah, you're right
Oh, that's
about
what that is?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was looking at that. I said, oh, look at those pupils. They're square. Or not square, you know, rectangular. Look
Yeah,
at your
you're right about
eyes.
that.
What pretty eyes you have.
They do. Their
Hey.
breed is originally from Turkey.
Oh,
Okay.
Turkey, okay.
Yeah, the Angora goat. So, and then someone said, well, since
Hello.
Angora yarn and sweaters is
Hey.
from the rabbit, and we get mohair from the Angora goat. We found that mohair
He was like,
is
now
an
what?
Arabic word for
Now what?
hair of the goat.
Here, I can go.
So, yeah.
Joe just
so
gave him some
mohair.
food. He's like, what? What?
And they'll get on the tires too, and they'll just stand there and balance.
Yeah.
Last October, talk about snow. Last October, I took a picture. There were two goats standing on the tires.
Oh,
And we
okay.
were laughing. We were saying, yeah, they're telling us how high the snow's going to be. And would you believe the next day we had a blizzard?
Whoa.
Oh,
I
wow.
said, see, I told
Yeah.
you. They go, Karen, you're crazy. I said, see, I told you. They were telling us.
Yeah.
They were telling us.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, yeah, how are you, sweet girl? One of the things
She's tough.
she is. One of the things too is one of the signs that they're going to deliver
Mm-hmm.
is they will be turned to the side where their baby is, and they'll talk to it.
Oh, really?
And you know, either
Okay.
within hours or
Yeah.
a day or two, that mother's going to deliver that baby.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
neat.
They do some kind of.
Yeah.
Chewing that cud. Side to side. That's a warm wool. They're not feeling no pain out here in
Yeah,
this cold. They're beautiful. Oh, I guess not. He's doing something back there. He's not talking. He's.
Donkeys.
Oh, I hear them.
The donkeys know that we're up here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, the sixth seal. See?
Yeah, the sackcloth of hair.
Okay. Go ahead, let's do it.
Yeah. You're going to have to do that.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Well,
It's good though.
Yeah,
It's...
I know it's good. I'm already like.
Welcome everyone. This is Aquila and Priscilla Ministries, and I'm Joe Ellis here with my lovely and beautiful wife Ursula Ellis, and we got another good video for you today. We're going to get into some things concerning the trip that we had to Boone, North Carolina, and we went to a farm, and they had different animals. They had alpacas, they had donkeys, they had llamas, they had goats, and chickens, and different other, kind of animals that you would find on a farm. But what struck us most was the goats. And God gave us and reminded us of the importance of the goats, and it's all throughout the Bible. And we're going to get into that subject matter, and we're going to not do an exhaustive discussion on goats, because that would be about a 3 or 4 hour video with 3 or 4 parts. But we're going to get into enough of it to just kind of give you an idea of the importance of goats and how it flipped when we're going to be discussing also about the coming of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and how it actually does a reversal of importance. So I'm pretty much giving you information in the beginning, but I think it's a blessed twist of how these things happen, and it'll remind us of how and what we ought to strive for and what God sees as important.
Actually, in the beginning, we wanted to see sheep. We were not intending to see goats. And by the pictures and the footage of this place we're going to go, it looked like sheep. And I thought I saw that they had sheep there. So when our guide was telling us, I was like, well, where are the sheep at? And she was like, oh, we don't have any sheep. I was like, what? And we were kind of disappointed. But these particular goats, they actually look like sheep. If you really didn't know any better, you would believe that they were sheep. But they were the Romney goats. I'll have to put the what the description of what these kinds of goats were. They actually are from the Turkey or somewhere like that, and they don't look like the traditional goat with the hair just long, just kind of straight and that kind of thing. So these particular goats had that really pretty wool that was, you could touch it, is real soft, and it was curly, like a little curly perm. And they were very gentle. The people who actually owned these goats, or the animals in general, they were all tamed, and that was also something that was on the Google reviews. They were saying how tame these animals were. They weren't like jumping wild and stuff. But I will say that when we were coming towards them, and they were just about to climb up over the fence. They were like just really
very engaging.
Yeah, really engaging.
Yeah, they
on
came
their two
up
legs.
to the fence, and once they saw that the tour guide went for the treat container, that was it.
Yeah,
then everybody was just kind of like at attention, like ready to get a little treat. That's when I was asked, did I want to feed the goats? And I said, sure, why not? And so I went to feed the goats after the tour guide had gave me a handful, and the goats had no problem with coming up and pretty much licking it out of your hand. It's different because, like, you would think that the goat would kind of use their lips like we do, but the whole time the goat was using its tongue to lap out the treat. I guess it was made of different kind of seeds and stuff like that, to lick it out of my hand. And what was funny was the goat's tongue wasn't like sopping wet or whatever. So it was, at first I really couldn't understand how it was doing it, because the tongue didn't leave like all this saliva in my hand. It was like I could feel my hand, and it didn't feel like it was wet with something. It felt a little moist. So I was like, well, how? Because it had its head turned a little bit. So I'm like, how is it getting all of the seed and stuff out of my hand? So I kind of took a closer look, and I saw that it was rapidly using its tongue to grab what was in my hand. It kind of stuck to the tongue, and so when it would stick to the tongue, it would retract its tongue back in its mouth and do that over and over and over, like real fast, like blah 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 blah. And so it was like, I was like, oh, okay, I see how it's doing it now. It's just licking it up. And so we had footage of us actually doing that, of me actually feeding the goats. And there was one goat in particular that was the dominant one. And because I was like, okay, I fed this goat, now I want to try to give some treats to some of the other goats. And this goat in particular, it was following me, and it was kind of pretty much aggressively moving where I was, and the other goats that were there, it was muscling those goats out of the way, like, get out of my way, get out of my way, because I'm gonna get this treat, and that's all that's gonna be to it. So it was like, it just did that, and I just picked up on it, and I was like, okay, this must be the dominant goat in the herd, because nobody contested or nobody protested that, hey, you come on, we both want the same thing. I'm not getting out the way, or I'm not just gonna be pushed around. But they allowed that particular goat to do that.
We wanted to pause the video for just a moment to explain the goat queen or the herd queen. And it's the hierarchy of how goat herds and packs run. They're actually run by the leading of a female goat, whereas the hierarchy in the sheep herd is the ram. The ram, which is the male goat, is actually the leader of the flock. As we know that goats represent the world and sinners, and the sheep represent the Christians and who we are. And it's interesting to know that the goats are actually led by the woman, or the the female, whereas the sheep are led by the male, or the rams. She tends to be very tough, very stubborn. That's a very strong adjective to describe what a goat queen is. But she also does protect the flock, especially when it comes to feeding and keeping the flock away from predators and also from eating poisonous plants. Those kind of things are surveyed by her. So she actually acts or takes on the role of a male, and this is why the goats did not put up any kind of fuss when it came to this dominant female goat, is because she was queen. That's why. If you'd like more information regarding this, you can Google it, or you can pause the video just to read the things that's actually being said regarding the goat queen. Now back to the video.
And it was very interesting, and we find out that that's how animals are, whether they're in the wild or whether they're kept under our care. You always have leaders in a herd. You always have leaders in a pack. You always have leaders in a den, or whatever it may be. When it's several of them, it's always a dominant one. It's always one that pretty much has authority.
Well, the interesting thing about this one, which it was a female goat that was dominant. It's gonna make sense when we tell you more things about goats, about why that's that way. It's a reason why there was. She was acting like that, acting just like she had no food in years, and just like she's in the streets, like a gangster goat. And she was just bum rushing everybody. They had a couple. They were just kind of looking. They didn't want to get into all that pile of mess that was going on.
Ones, were just kind of like,
oh, okay, let's. Just kind of observing,
yeah. And
I think one of them had come up to me, and I guess it was like looking up, and it was so cute because they're so curious, and I'm going to get into that later on. How curious they were, and they just stared, and this goat did not look away. It just was staring at me. I think too because I had that camera like this, and it was just so curious. It had a curious look. And because we've been looking into sheep and everything, I looked at the pupils, and you could hear that in the video when I was asking the tour guide. I said, well, I've heard that sheep had those rectangular pupils, and I heard it was because of predators. They got a wide field of vision so that they can look behind and not turn their head. They can just kind of stay like this, and then their eyes are doing like that, in a way, or that field of vision is doing that.
Yeah. And
so it was just so weird seeing those square things, and then Joe was, oh yeah, they do have rectangular pupils.
Yeah.
And then she was, oh yes, that's right, that's right. And you would not know those things unless you studied it, because we don't look at these animals in the eye like that, to study it like that. So that was interesting, but they were, for the most part, they were friendly. And then she was big, that dominant one. She was, kind of, she was tough.
She was large and in charge.
Yeah, large and in charge.
That's right.
It was the funniest thing because Joe, he immediately spotted that, he discerned very quickly, this is the dominant one. And the tour guide, she just laughed and laughed because we because he was so intuitive of what was going on with the goat, you know, and because she knew that was what was going on. And then he kind of, you know, as you would see in the video, he kind of had it where he went to the other ones. Y'all have some food. No, I'm going to have that food. And so it was just really funny.
Yeah,
but,
it was funny.
yeah, so we really enjoyed it. And, you know, when it comes to sheep, Christians are so into sheep, which is good because it's us. We are the sheep of his pasture.
Right.
But we cannot forget the goats because they are always symbolic of sinners. But there's also something else to goats that we have been discovering. We're going to share those things with you. But right now, just really going over the video and our footage. Just a really nice farm place. At some point in time, we're going to go to a sheep farm, but we were not disappointed with seeing the goats as we thought we would be. And I know that the Lord was just really speaking to me, you know, that, you know, this is how it is a lot of the times. You know, Christians, they tend to really gravitate to just things are just for us. But we cannot be selfish like that. We have to go out to the lost. And you have folks who have callings when it comes to going to the lost. You know, that's why you have evangelists and that sort of thing. I know Joe he's an evangelist, but we're all really pretty much called when it comes to telling the lost about the Lord. But you have some that are strong in that area as far as a calling or an office. And so we ourselves, the Lord, were just showing that the goats cannot be ignored as well, and that they are important, and also that we were one of them before we became a Christian, became a sheep of his pasture. So
because we had no idea that this is what it was going to turn out and be. So we really hadn't even thought about goats and looking into them or anything like that. It didn't even pop up on the radar. It wasn't really until we found ourselves in that situation, and it was like the goats were really like, besides the alpacas and the llamas, they were really the ones that was the center of it all. You know, we don't have any mention of alpacas and llamas in the Bible, but we do have mentions things of the goats. You know, it's goats are mentioned over 120 some times in the Bible. So we do have a lot of information and a lot of events that goats were a part of. And so that was something that in my research and study of really looking closely at the importance and the role that goats had played back in biblical times, and even today, it was extraordinary to find out that goats were a very important animal with the people of God and with the people of that culture. It's fascinating to just see that goats were really vitally important when you look into all of that. And then when you piece everything together, the picture that you get is that the goat is something to be sought after, to be obtained, and to use to enhance your life, to sustain your life, and to, in some cases, make atonement for the things you've done in your life. So you look at the goat, and even in Greek religion and stuff, the goat was looked at to be an animal of rivalry and sturdiness and what you call it, durable. Because when you think about goats as well, you think about the mountain goats, right? You have a certain species of goats that live in the mountains, and those mountains are real steep, and you'll see that those goats are able to scale those walls with those hooves. Mm-hmm. And even the babies, they could be on like almost like 45-degree angles, like 30-degree angles, and they are still able to maintain their balance. They're able to go up the mountainside, they're able to go down the mountainside, and they're doing it with, expertise. They're not doing it like, oh, if I miss a step, then that's it. That's the end of me. No, they're doing it like, hey, we're good. This is instinctively something that we just get right. And so
the characteristics of goats and why goats are what the Word of God does compare it to sinners. A lot of the things that's being said, it all makes sense. It all ties together, and which brings us to some characteristics of goats, like their person, as far as what they eat and that sort of thing. And as I was mentioning, when it comes to their pupils are rectangular because it protects them from predators. It gives them a wider field of vision so that they can see behind their head almost without having to turn their head. They don't have time to turn their head when something is actually behind them, and they don't want to let on that they know that there's something behind them, that they themselves can actually sense that presence of that predator. And another characteristic is how they eat, as far as the different kinds of foods that they eat versus sheep. Goats, they pretty much are, they're called browsers. They pretty much will eat anything. Their diet is actually healthier than sheep. If you look at goats, most of them look like they're kind of slim and trim, whereas sheep look kind of, fatty. But it's their diet, they can find so many different kinds of things. They know where to go, and they're not afraid to go in certain places to find certain foods. But some of these things are not good for them, and it actually could kill them. But they're so inquisitive, they're so curious, which brings me to this other facet of goats, is they're very curious. And as I was mentioning earlier about that one particular goat looking at me and was just like, it's like they were like talking, with his eyes. It was kind of scary because, or creepy in a way, because this goat was almost human-like in a sense, and I was like, what is up with this goat? I mean, we didn't know anything about goats at all before we actually went to this farm. It was all new to us. We didn't really find all these things out until after the fact, and it all just began to click and make sense. And just with those eyes, those rectangular pupils, and just looking and staring, and it would stare me down. I would have to look away, curious to find out, what does she have in her hand? What is this? And just for a long period of time. And that is not good for them also, which actually makes them more troublesome than sheep, because they get into trouble more. They're too curious. They get into things they have no business getting into.
They are escape artists. Like, you have to really dot every I and cross every T when you're talking about keeping them fenced in or caged in, because if you have just one small area that's not totally goat proof, they will either get hung up in it or they'll be able to get out. And goats are always, like she said, they're curious. but they're always wanting to venture out. They're not like sheep. Sheep are comfortable with being in a confine. They not only because they're herd animals, but their nature and their demeanor, they want to be with one another. They don't want to venture out into it because they're animals of prey.
Right.
So they don't want to put themselves in a position where the wolf can get them, the coyotes can get them, or, you know, different other kind of predators, whether they're, you know, certain kind of big cats or, you know, certain kind of birds. If they're small enough, you know, even an eagle can pick up, you know, a young lamb and, you know, fly off with it. So sheep do not want to be in a situation where they feel insecure. So they're gonna want to be in a herd, and they're not gonna want to venture out past the fencing that you put them in. And if they do, like, cause some owners, we talking about, you know, in modern times, they will put like a little electric fence around them to keep animals from coming in, but to also teach the animals that you can't go beyond this point. If they were to like touch up against it and it, you know, jolted them, they're not gonna touch up against it anymore. They learned from that experience, and they're not gonna keep trying to get past that. A goat is not satisfied with that jolt. He's gonna keep finding a way to get past that jolt and that fencing. He wants to go out. He wants to do his own thing, even though he's a herd animal, but he's driven to keep, you know, going, to keep looking and foraging for, you know, the briars and different things that they like to eat and stuff. And so if that was a symbolic kind of person, if you know, we were talking about how animals can symbolize us as humans, you know, and use it in some kind of you know, allegory or something.
There's something else that goats, they as far as their person, you know, kind of piggybacking off of being curious. Goats, they're independent. They're more independent than sheep. Sheep, they have to be around a flock. They want to be around their fellow sheep people. They don't like to be alone, sheep. But goats, they can tend to be loners. They're very independent. They're very smart. They're very they have high intelligence. So it makes them be able to be independent. I'm not saying that sheep are all dumb, because a lot of them don't, you know, the IQ is not all that great, but but they do have some sense, you know, at a certain point. But goats have high intelligence. They actually can figure out how to get out of sticky situations, you know, like you said, escape artists. They have a high intelligence. Sheep are not trying to do all that kind of crazy stuff. They're pretty much just, you know, as you would say, creatures of habit. That's why when it comes to when sheep eat, they eat close to the ground. They don't be doing all this weird stuff to get food. They're just used to eating a certain way, a certain kind of food, grass or clothes, whatever, close to the ground, and that's it. Whereas goats, they'll get on their hind legs, their 2 feet, you know, because when they came to the gate to greet us, that's something else I want to get into. I guess trying to tie it in with our experience, it kind of gave us a little bit of revelation with this, is they get on their 2 feet to get food. They don't just use all fours. They will climb trees, they will climb anything, get into your bushes, get into everything else. You don't need a lawnmower. They'll eat the grass. They'll eat everything that they possibly can. They have cartoons that kind of joke around when it comes to goats eating like tin cans. They're trying to make a point that goats eat everything that is interesting to them. I don't want to say they want to eat everything. The key is they eat everything interesting to them. That's going to make sense as it ties in the centers and how they do things. But I want to get into also us going to them. they didn't know us from Adam, and they were just so, into us and everything, and just curious, and they didn't just back away. Sheep would not have paid us any mind. They're like, oh, they don't pay folks that they don't know. They don't do that kind of stuff with them. They pretty much are like, okay, they don't sound familiar to me. I'm not paying any attention, and they will literally ignore you. If they're chomping on grass, whatever, they'll keep chomping on grass with their head down, as though you don't even exist. Mm-hmm. That's why Jesus said that my sheep hear my voice, the shepherd's voice, and a stranger they're going to flee away from, or just not pay them any mind at all, and they'll run away. Whereas the goats were running towards us. We could have been the predators. We could have been folks trying to
make
shoot
goat
them.
meat out of them.
Anything.
Goat burgers or something.
so they have this intelligence, but then they don't have intelligence. It's amazing how God uses analogy and symbolism when it comes to this, and why it all ties in with it making sense of it really equaling sinners, and why we ourselves as Christians want to go out to reach them, because there's many times he will say that the goat, which Joe's he's gonna tear that whole thing up when he'll say, to put the goats on the left hand and the sheep on the right hand, and he's gonna tie that in. But you get to understand why Jesus refers sinners to goats and us to sheep, because it is a vast difference. It is something, it's just so on point. When God says something, it's always on point. It's not anything missing or lacking. And he made these animals, so it just makes sense he used what he already created to tie into his messages, into his revelation and his wisdom.